A couple months ago, I started Moda Blockheads 6, and I made 2 blocks, and then I got distracted. So now it's finally time to get back on track, but first I want to just share a little refresher. So I'm using this as an opportunity to, one, experiment and just be relaxed and fun with what I'm doing, and then number 2, to use up some scraps. Unfortunately, I was going through these scraps a lot faster than I was expecting to, so luckily I found another scrap bag with sort of pinks and purples, and that should fit in, maybe not very seamlessly, but it'll fit. I'm going to work it in. So that should give me a little bit more fabric to work with so I can make more blocks. I'm not planning on making every single block. I've just gone through and I've picked several of my favorite ones, and I'm going to work on those. I don't even know, this one is 27 inches finished. It's huge. So I'm not sure if I even have enough fabric for this one, but I'd like to. I'm hoping I do. So as I go through this, I'm going to need to keep an eye on how I use my fabric, and I'm going to try to use it effectively, hopefully. So for instance, for this square here, I'm going to cut up a little crumb block that I pieced previously, put it in there. I think, so for these corners here, you're cutting 4 3.5-inch squares, which is going to be a waste of fabric because you're only going to use half of those squares for each of those corners. So I need to do a little quilt math, so I can just cut 2 blocks and then cut that in half and use those and then trim it up, if you know what I mean. So I can hopefully not have as much fabric waste. In previous videos, I've sort of done step by step through the whole block, but I'm going to try to fit several blocks into this video, so I'm not going to go step by step. I'm just going to maybe focus on the modifications that I make, and then I'll show the finished block. So I was originally hoping to not use any white in this. I use white as a background or cream as a background all the time, and I wanted to use light pink instead, but I'm almost out of this. This is sort of lightish. It's more medium, really. But I did find, again, this bag comes in handy. I have sort of this beigeish, creamy, blushy pink, and it's coming out sort of yellow on camera. Here's another light pink that I could use as a background color. This one too, and this one. So I have a few more options. And I wish they weren't quite so cream, because that's basically a cream with pink on top, but I have limitations and I have to work with them. So here we go, first block. Block 4, Cat's Cradle by Kylie Ferrens of Kylie's Quilt Room. Okay, here is my first scrap saving change. So in the original pattern, let me look at it. It calls for this rectangle to be 6.5 inches. And then you're supposed to cut 4 squares that are 3.5-inch square. And that would be a lot of waste once you cut this seam. So it would be a big square. You'd go like this, like that, and then you'd have all of that extra fabric. So I didn't want to do that. I hope you can picture that. So I did this instead. And hopefully I did the math right. But it should be, I'm going to fold this in half, matching up the points. Like this, and then I'll fold this in half, and I'll match up those marks and sew along that line. And hopefully it'll result in a 6.5-inch square. And that's the only thing that I'm going to change about this block, and I'm actually excited to get on to the next part. I don't think I have ever done half rectangle triangles before, so that should be fun. I know that you have to trim them a little differently, and there's a lot of helpful information in the pattern to make sure it gets to the right size. So I'm going to sew this before I trim or cut any other pieces, but I'm not going to see you again until I have finished the block. Okay, so the block is done, and the changes I made in the middle were perfect. They worked out so well. So I'm going to reiterate what the sizes were. For this main patch here, it was 4 3/4 inches. And then for these corner blocks, I cut 2 squares instead of 4, 2 squares that were 3 by 7/8 inches, and then I just cut them on the diagonal to get these 4 triangles. So saved a lot of fabric there, I think. As far as the half rectangle triangles went, this is my best one. It's not perfect. They were mostly like this. So I think I probably messed up when I was trimming them, so they weren't exactly how they were supposed to be. But you know what? From a distance, you're not going to notice. So I'm going to count that as a success for now, and I'm going to move on to the next block. The next block I'm going to work on is the Bellissimo Star by Joanna Figueroa of Fig Tree & Co. It is the 7th block in the Moda Blockheads 6 series, and it is complicated. And I didn't realize until a little bit earlier that it's an 18-inch block. I thought it was going to be super tiny pieces in a 9-inch block, so that makes a little more sense. But it's still a lot of moving pieces. I don't want to do too many changes because that, it's complicated, and if I make a mistake in these here, it could jeopardize the whole quilt block. So the only thing I am changing right now is I'm simplifying this center square here. So either I find a crumb block that might fit here, or I'll just do a 5-inch square. I also took the time to label all of this to make sure that I know exactly what each piece is for, because I don't want to cut an A here thinking it's that A, but it's actually this A or this A. So I wanted to really simplify that because I know myself, and I know I would mess it up if I don't take the time to do that. So at the moment, I'm thinking each of the B's will be a different color, some dark colors, like dark purples, and the A's, I'm not sure yet. I am thinking I'm definitely going to go with a light, but I'm not 100% confident that I have a light that can do all of these A's. So I'm probably going to do like one A or one color for these A's, and then one color for these A's. Or no, maybe these A's will be different, and then have one color for all of the outer A's, if that makes sense. It's very complicated. So I think I'm just going to start with the half square triangles and the outer border, and I need to ruminate on this section here because I'm not sure what I want to do with that yet. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to support this channel, check out my merch shop and buy me a coffee page. Okay, let's get back to the video. Here are my little corner units, and I think they turned out pretty cute. I really like them, actually. But I've reached sort of a mental block for what to do next. I have limited scraps, as I've said, and I'm not sure what the best use of them would be for these units here. So for one thing, I'll show you what I've been looking at. I know that I like this black with the light pink and purple, but I'm not sure where I should use it in these units. So I think it might be cool to put them in the A's instead of a light, and then you'd have a sawtooth star that's like coming to the forefront pretty easily. Or it might be nice to have it in this shape, but then maybe it's too dark. So I don't know about that. Then I also have this color I was thinking of before I had finished the units, and I think it's too red. I don't think it's working at all, basically. Set those aside real quick, because I was also having trouble with the center block. So there's this. Actually, this might not be big enough. No, it is big enough. Okay, so I was thinking of this for the very center, but I'm not a super huge fan with all these oranges. And then I have a similar kind of batik, but it also has these oranges that are sort of jarring, I think. But if this was surrounded by black, maybe it would take the edge off a little bit. So imagine this a little more. It would work a little better. But then I still have to figure out what I'm going to do for this part. So I'm completely at my wit's end with this. I've tried a bunch of different things, not just those, and I can't decide. So I'm going to take a break and come back at it tomorrow. I might actually just redesign the center part. Those two, the I want to say phalanges, and I know that's not what I want to say. These parts, I want to maybe redesign that, do a different shape. I don't know, but I'm going to put it aside for now. Just let it simmer. So it's actually been closer to a week since I've worked on this project. I've just had such a block with these sections. I can't do them. I mean, I can do them, but I can't think of a way to do it that pleases me. So I had an idea. I have these leftover foundation paper pieces that I used for a couple projects last year. So I thought I might incorporate these and that black color that I was liking previously, and it would turn out something like this. Okay? Now, I did make a couple mistakes. One of them is that I didn't realize until I was trimming them that I wasn't getting them very perfectly finished in these corners. So it's not a huge deal. It's going to be eaten up in the seam allowance. The biggest problem here is that I did the quilt math in my head and I didn't double check it. I just cut and went with it. And I didn't realize until later that every one of these units is like a 1/4 inch too short. So there's a big old gap up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to match up these edges, and then at the end, after I've put the whole block together, I'm going to trim that excess 1/2 inch off. So needless to say, even before I do the trimming, this block is going to come out much smaller than the original one. But I don't mind because I'm not using them for anything. It's just a fun little experiment. So I'm going to do these each time, and then, where's my center? And then have this in the center. I'm going to sew all of this off camera, and then I'll show you what it looks like. You know, it just occurred to me that I have been trying to save fabric everywhere, and then I introduce foundation paper piecing, which notoriously eats up a ton of fabric. So I feel like a little bit of a doofus, but you know, it's just a little bit, in my defense, it's just a little bit of paper piecing. So anyway. Okay, here we go, big reveal. Ta-da! You know what? I actually think it turned out pretty cute. It didn't turn out perfect. I made some mistakes here and there, but I really like how it turned out. And I'd actually be tempted to use this block for an entire quilt, like maybe 3 across, 4 down, something like that. Or actually, it might be cute on point. Let me turn it real quick. You know what? I don't hate it this way. It's sort of an unusual shape with these ribbon stars. I always call them that. I don't know what you would call that. But in a whole quilt, maybe with an interesting sashing, not just a plain sashing, but a pieced sashing, that could be an interesting quilt. But I have to admit, it is not really recognizable when you compare it to what it was supposed to look like. So I'm not even sure if I should keep making my blockhead blocks because I'm making so many changes. It's not really, I don't know, I just can't tell personally if it's in the spirit of the whole blockhead process, you know, trying new things and seeing what designers come up with. Because, for instance, the next block that I was going to do was this one. Don't pay attention to the colors because that's not what I was going to use. But the original quilt, let me get a pen. The original quilt here had a bunch of hourglass blocks. And I don't like hourglass blocks because they have such bulky seams. They really annoy me. I like to avoid them. I'm also trying to save fabric where I can. So it doesn't make sense to me personally, with my goals of saving fabric, to cut these squares in half and sew them as as hourglass blocks. So I eliminated those. I have just regular squares, and then I would have pieced it like this. So I would have pieced each of these corners because they'd all be identical. Then I would piece together these 2 corners with the center. I would piece together this corner with these 2 extra triangles, same for here, and then I would piece those 3 sort of strips together. So that's how I would have done it, but now I'm sort of having a crisis of confidence here. I really don't know if I should keep going or not. I have more scraps, but I don't know if I should keep going. If I do keep going, I'm going to probably skip to this block. It's a big one, 27 inches finished, but I'd really like to make this super duper scrappy. But again, I would make a pretty big redesign for this block. So instead of having all of these seams in the triangle, I would just make this one triangle piece. no extra seams. And then I'd piece these triangles, so I'd piece these 3 as half square triangles, and then have these as a half square triangle by itself. Does that make sense? I would piece these 3 as a standard half square triangle square. Does that make sense? And then have these 3 as half square triangles by themselves. So that's what I would do for this one. Let me know in the comments section if I made any sense or if I should keep going, because I really don't know. Thanks for spending time with me today, quilters. If you want to support this channel and help me buy supplies and materials for future videos, please visit my Buy Me a Coffee page linked in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss upcoming videos. And I'll see you again real soon. Bye!